Okay, we're back in business, and John's here.
Yes.
Okay. So we are at 7 o'clock. We're back in open session. I just want to say that I'm sorry, it is a long agenda this evening. So let's begin with citizen concerns. Are there any, David?
There's one hand up.
Please.
Go ahead, Tom. You have to unmute yourself. Please identify yourself and your street.
Sure. Tom Gillespie, 14th Thoreau Road. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I have a very short introductory statement from the Dog Park Committee and other interested parties. I'd be happy to read that now, or if you want to wait until agenda item 14. I know that agenda item 14 is not directly related to the dog park, but it is related to specifics of the AHA project. So it's up to you. Can read it very short now or then.
Why don't you read it now?
Okay. All right, so my name is Tom Gillespie, and I'm the current chair of the Dog Park Committee. I have a short statement to make on behalf of the entire committee and interested parties. First, we continue to be very grateful for the support we have received in our efforts to bring a dog park to Acton, and are especially grateful for dog park site selection being, a stated short-term select board goal for 2020. We know these are exceptional times and that the health and safety of our citizens must be the highest priority, but we do expect some town human resources will need to be expended to help us both accomplish this short-term goal. Given the recent vehement objections expressed by the Isaac Davis Way neighbors to locating a dog park anywhere near their properties, there have been several suggestions that the town is facing an either-or proposition, facing a choice of one project over the other. My remarks tonight include several reasons why we think there absolutely can be a successful AHA project and a successful dog park site selection proposition for Main Street. That said, we want everyone to know that we are unanimous in our sincere support of the AHA project, and as strongly as we may feel about a dog park at the Main Street site, we do not want to stand in the way of the AHA project, and we want to be very clear on this. We hope to work with you, the town leaders, on a strategy that enables both a dog park and an AHA project. Here's a very quick summary of what we've done in advance of getting to an AHA and dog park strategy. Number one, clarity is needed regarding using Isaac Davis Way as an entry to a small 10 to 12 slot parking area as envisioned in Tom Tidman's design for the dog park. Neighbors say no. Selby suggests yes. Clarity is needed. If Isaac Davis Way cannot be used for access to a parking area, where are the parking alternatives? We've had preliminary discussions on this topic, but we are not engineers or land resource experts and likely need town resources to assist. Number three, since the AHA septic hookup cannot pass under Isaac Davis Way due to neighbors' steadfast objections, we have discussed with Selby and Tom Tidman a high-level idea of changing where the AHA septic system could be located, eliminating the need to use Isaac Davis Way. I can provide more details as needed. Town support is also needed to move this forward. So we hope you find this information relevant and helpful to our committee's need for a strategy going forward for both projects. And we again thank you for your continued support.
Tom, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
David, is there anyone else?
Yes, Matt Post has his hand up. Go ahead, Matt Post. Please state your name and your street.
You need to unmute Matt.
Okay.
We can't unmute. Could we unmute Matt?
I did.
So do you have me now?
Yes.
Yeah. You may begin.
So I'm Matthew Post, 6 Isaac Davis Way, Acton. I represent the landowners of Isaac Davis Way and owners of Isaac Davis Way Drive, as well as the neighbors in the immediately connected to that Main Street property. I know that the Board of Selectmen, I had presented to you guys a petition months ago with signatures saying that we were not in favor of this site. I have had one phone call with John, and he's not returning my calls on these past few times I've tried to speak to him. My issue is this. There's a project going in next to us for the Acton Housing Authority, which we are adamantly in favor of, okay? And we said that from the very beginning. Their board is working well with us. We're happy to see that project go through. We are not happy to see the dog park go through, and it's not because it's a dog park. I mean, I own a dog myself, and we have 1,600 acres of land in Acton that are used daily for everybody in Acton who has dogs. The problem is this. We own Isaac Davis Way. The town has no rights to Isaac Davis Way. And I sent over the release agreement to the board this morning. You all should have received it at some point. And I also sent it to John as well. And it clearly outlines that you do not have the ability to cross over Isaac Davis Way for any utilities whatsoever. That being said, we are more than happy to have the Housing Authority project, and we're more than happy to give the Housing Authority project an easement to do that. We're all in agreement on that, but we are not in agreement to have the dog park located on Main Street. So I guess what I'm kind of telling you is that, you're either gonna make things go smoothly with the Acton Housing Authority, or there's going to be two projects that are going to be kind of interrupted until this can be sorted out. And I'm not trying to hold you over the fire, but there's a reason why we live in a residential area, and we feel like we're getting swallowed up by various things that are going on that don't necessarily need to be here. So with that said, is there a way that we can open a line of communication to discuss the rights and the ability to use Isaac Davis Way for the Housing Authority project?
David?
Yeah, may I just ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Yes.
Mr. Post, so if I'm understanding you correctly, you're threatening to stop the AHA property unless you get your way on the dog park. Is that correct?
So, you know what? You can call it what you want, but we own the road. So if you don't have access to cross over it, it's going to be a problem for your project.
I understand. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Post.
By the way, it doesn't have to be hard. I mean, this is a very easy thing. There was many other locations for the dog park which were just as good, if not better. So we'll see how it goes.
There's no one else with their hands up, John.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Post. On the chair update, again, I just want to apologize for the length of the agenda this evening, but we hope to have a little break in the action in the coming weeks. Now, I would like to, at our next meeting, institute a members' minute at this point. This would be to replace the Selectmen's reports, which had been in place for probably about 5 or 6 years, which seem to have fallen by the wayside. That was where Selectmen would file reports of all their committees that they attended in the 2 weeks between meetings. That had taken the place of a practice that had been in effect before that, where over the course of the 24 meetings during the year, 2 committees would come in per meeting and report on what they were doing. And the selectmen, I think back in 2013, said that was taking up too much time, and the more efficient way to do it would be by the filing of selectmen's reports. We've been, really flat out busy since the middle of March, and I think the COVID crisis is going to be with us for, many more months. So what I would like to do, starting at our next meeting, is to allow each member a minute or two to report on items of interest, interesting developments on things, matters that they're working on either individually, or with their committees as a replacement. The town of Andover does it in a similar way. So let's give that a try. In terms of next meetings, we traditionally meet on the first and third Mondays of each month, and it's been the practice in recent years to just have one meeting in August on the first Monday. The first Monday would be August 3. John is planning a family vacation, and I don't want to have him interrupted to join us. So we're likely to need more than one meeting in August because we're going to have a mid-September town meeting. So I would propose meetings on Monday, August 10th and Monday, August 24th. We'll just have to firm up the time so we're not in conflict with anyone else. Does that conflict with anyone's vacation schedules?
Fine with me.
I would likely not be able to come on the 10th. I'm not sure yet. We were originally scheduled in the original schedule at the beginning of the year to meet on the 3rd, were we not?
Yes, I had said that the first meeting, the August meeting was supposed to be on the 3rd. John M. has a family vacation for that week.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
And I didn't want to have.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood that. I thought that you were saying it was after. Okay. I may or may not be able to come on the 10th, but I'll do my best.
Thank you. And then I just wanted to say that I will be participating in the Acton Chinese American Civic Society panel on July 30th, which will be a discussion of diversity in Acton. In discussing the program with Ms. Wang, I started talking to her about, Acton's long history of diversity, and she said that would be your topic. So I will be speaking for myself, not on behalf of the board. A history of, starting way back and taking it, to the present, and finding that as an interesting task as I reach out to members of various groups in town. So with that,
point of order.
Sure, yeah.
I think you said the 30th. Are you sure that date's correct? Because I just heard it was the 29th. Just so people.
No, it's Wednesday the 30th. No, it's whatever Wednesday. I think, no, I'm sorry. It's Wednesday the 29th. That's correct.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Wednesday the 29th. I think the dates were jumbled a little bit. Yes, it's Wednesday. I'm sorry. So John, for your manager's update.
Thank you, and thanks for the accommodation for my vacation. I appreciate it. And
that's important. You're our most valuable asset.
If it doesn't work out, let me know, and I can take the next Monday off.
Okay. No, not coming back.
The forum that you referenced will be the second of two. The first was last Wednesday. It was a great night. We had some great speakers locally and an individual from Boston join us and talk about issues of race and diversity. And there's about 75, 80 people that tuned in, and probably many more that watched it on YouTube afterwards. So the Acton Chinese American Civic Society really put it all together, and I was just there to help with the Zoom. I was a Zoom guy, and it was a great event, and I look forward to the one next week. So thanks for doing that, John, and I know there'll be some other great guests along with you that night as well. And look for some flyers and stuff like that out online later this week with the full details on how to log in. Changing gears, the Concord water, the Nagog Pond project that's been discussed a lot here at board meetings and most recently over the communications plan. I just want to give an update to the board that we do have a communication plan implemented. They've been doing regular updates on their website, and we've created a direct link from that to our website. They also have created a emailing list through using Google Groups. So anyone that wants to get these updates directly can subscribe to their mailing list. And we'll be sending out a public news flash so that everybody can find it easier this week. I just want to give an update on that. Speaking of water, the Water District had a meeting last week, the same night as the board, to discuss many things. One of them was the PFAS contaminant that's been discussed a lot lately. Matt Musteller, who's the environmental compliance person for the district, is going to join me on Friday morning on Java with John to give people an opportunity to ask direct questions of him. We've been getting a lot of great emails from residents with concerns and questions about what PFAS is and what it means to them. And the district had a meeting last week. The Board of Health, I think, is going to be meeting about it later this month. And I will be providing people an opportunity this Friday morning at 10 to also get more information. So it's concerning to not know what it is. I think once you learn more about it, I think people will have a better understanding and it'll be good for everyone. So if you can't check out any of those times, contact my office and we can help arrange you to get in touch with the district to learn more about it. Our staff has been getting creative and innovative out at Town Hall. We've been closed, but there's people that need to see us and work with us. So last week, Marty from the assessor's office set up a tent outside and scheduled all of the veterans who come in and do the veterans paperwork for the taxes to come and visit outside, socially distanced with masks and everything. It worked out really well. Brian McMullen and others were involved in that. And then starting next week, or maybe sooner if we can pull it off, we're actually going to be opening up takeout service at Town Hall. We're still working out the details, but we do have some.
What are you serving?
Information and receipts, primarily. But I think tax bills are due August 1st, and a lot of people like to do it in person and like to get a receipt. And it was really hard for us to do that in July or last quarter because COVID was pretty new. Now we're in a position where we're going to set up a way for people to do that using our takeout window or maybe a tent. So stay tuned for more on that. And yeah, just wanted to mention those two things, or a few things. Thank you.
With the Nagog Pond communication plan, have you and Concord reduced that to a writing as to what the plan is?
Yes, I believe that was what we talked about and referred to a few weeks ago, the actual plan that the board was comfortable with, I thought.
I know we had a letter was sent to all of the abutting neighborhoods that you were in contact, what the major points were. Was that reduced to an actual writing between Acton and Concord?
I can check in more specifically. Selby has been taking the lead on interacting with the neighborhood, and he's been doing a lot of that. There's been a lot of concerns, and he's getting emails almost every day about it from people or from Concord. So it's definitely something we're actively working on, and I haven't mentioned in a while. So I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention, and I can look into that question for our next meeting or otherwise.
Any Jim?
Yeah, just a couple of follow-up questions. on the website or in general, is it clear who people should contact if they have questions about what's going on at Nagog Pond? Is there an email address people should refer to, or a phone number?
Yes, we have listed Selby as the contact and with his info on that page.
Great, thank you.
Dee?
And the other one, I got a question that came in. Are we broadcasting on the radio station tonight? They couldn't find it.
Let's see. Matt Frost, do you have any information about that? If we aren't, we will figure out why not, and we'll work on that behind the scenes.
Okay, thanks.
Dean?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, but looking at the time, and I know you've got some timed appointments. I think, for instance, the Post Office Square will probably only take a minute, so I'd be happy to, hold off on my comments until after we dispose of some of that information. Or
Okay, yeah.
go ahead now.
Okay. All right. So we will let's come back. So it's 7:10. I'm sorry, I let that slip. We have a request from regarding special a special permit site plan SPSP number 10/28/2019-4019-475, accept request to withdraw site plan application without prejudice, Bohler Engineering and Post Office Square. And from the letter from Mr. DeBrule, he is asking on behalf, dear members of the board, on behalf of Associated Environmental Systems, AES, we are requesting to withdraw the application for site plan special permit without prejudice for the proposed project at 8 and 10 Post Office Square. It is understood the application fee shall be held and no additional fee will be required for the resubmittal of a revised application package. Is there a representative of Bohler Engineering here now? No. So I guess we could do this in the form of a motion permitting the withdrawal of the application for the site plan special permit without prejudice. That means you could bring it again for the proposed project at 8 and 10 Post Office Square, and that the application fee shall be held and no additional fee will be required for the resubmittal of the revised package. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? David?
My understanding is that they're revising their plan.
Yes, yeah.
They want to withdraw it for now.
So without prejudice means they could bring it again.
Yes, of course.
Okay. Okay, so if there's no further comments, David, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Snyder Grant?
Aye.
Ms. Gardner?
Aye.
Mr. Charter?
Aye.
Mr. Benson?
Aye.
Mr. Martin? Aye. Unanimous.
Okay, the second matter was the public hearing that was continued, or the Acton Board of Selectmen to hold a public hearing on July 20th at 7:20 p.m. virtually on the application of Kaler Properties for site plan special permit under zoning bylaw section 10.4 at 50 Nagog Park for information and how to participate remotely, https ://forward/j/5039187885, and to view the application materials, http://doc Acton mass.gov/dsweew/collection-12392. The way we, is Lou Levine here?
Yes.
Okay. The way we left it last time was that Roland and the planning department were to put out a draft decision, which they had, that addressed the various condition requests that we put forward at the initial hearing on July 6th. We've all received the draft report, including a further update today. Would there be any further questions or comments? Dean.
Yeah, one point which I'm not sure got incorporated later on this afternoon. I received an email from a constituent suggesting that we tighten up some of the wording on the prohibition on idling vehicles in the parking lot. There is wording in the decision in that regard, but the suggestion was that we cite Mass General Law, Chapter 90, Section 16A, and 310 CMR 7.11. These are a little more specific. And they might be a little bit more enforceable, and it might give the property owner an opportunity to go to the state statute and regulations to know exactly what we have in mind.
So that would fit in, is that in 3.2.2?
Yes,
Not in 3.2.1? Just in that one paragraph?
it would just be 3.2.2.
Okay. So it's just citing the relevant statutes.
Right.
Okay. Does anyone have any comments on that?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Okay. Are there any comments, further comments from planning? From Mr. Levine? Mr. Levine? Are there any other representatives of the applicant on hand this evening?
Looks like Ms. Levine.
Jeff Checkaway is here.
Sir, are you okay? Are you okay with citing the relevant statutes?
Yes.
Incorporating that into 3.2.2?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Any further comments from any members of the board or from the applicant or planning? Are there any comments or questions from members of the public?
No, the only person with their hand raised is Mr. Levine.
Mr. Levine. Can we bring him in, or?
He's unmuted, but I'm feeling he might be having a microphone problem.
Okay.
So Mr. Levine, you could also call in, turn down the volume on your computer and call the phone number.
Or use the chat window and we'll read it out loud.
Yes, or use the chat window. Although in the chat window, an attorney would have to be brief. That's not likely.
Hello?
Yes, there.
Lou,
Yeah, I don't have any problem, but I would just suggest, you know, in the future, it's kind of a slippery slope because site plan doesn't waive any state statutes, and there's always a provision that you have to comply with anything. So I don't have a problem adding it in the site plan. The applicant has agreed to it, but I would just suggest, John and the rest of the board, that, you know, again, the state statute and the CMR are applicable even if we didn't have site plan approval. It becomes a slippery slope when you start putting stuff in there that's, you know, regulated separately anyway, but there's no harm in doing it. That's my only comment.
okay.
Move to approve?
Move to, with the addition
Yes.
of the statutory references in 3.2.2. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, so David, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
Mr. Martin, aye, it's unanimous.
Okay, so I'd like to thank Roland and planning and Lou Levine for their good work in pulling this together in short order. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we don't have another, our next hearing is at 8 o'clock. So why don't we get back to where we left off? Dean had some questions and comments for John.
Right. So my first two comments are regarding the there's this police reform bill which has been working its way through the legislature. The state Senate actually passed a bill. The House is working on one which is somewhat different. The bill is Senate 2820, and I have two questions. It's a very lengthy bill, and I've read through some of it, but I've got two questions that I'd like some input from the town manager on. First off, part of the bill in the Senate bill, but it's not at this point in the House bill, eliminates qualified immunity for police officers. There's been a lot of discussion about that. And the question I've got is whether the elimination of qualified immunity for the police officers could be construed to also eliminate qualified immunity for all other municipal employees. For instance, firefighters, highway department employees, any kind of public works, and probably by extension, even special municipal employees, members of boards and committees. For instance, one of the reasons that we go through the efforts we do, for instance, with the Land Stewardship Committee to make sure that they're vetted and trained, is because, and we want to have them sworn in, is to give them these protections. My question is whether this bill, if it was passed in the form that the Senate is proposing it, could eventually be used to eliminate those qualified immunity provisions for those employees, and indeed qualified immunity provisions for the individual members of this board. We all know that it's pretty easy for someone to bring a civil suit, and I'm concerned about the unintended consequences of this act if it's left in, and if it goes through the House, and if it's signed by the governor. That's one point, and I would suspect that perhaps Mass Municipal Association might have some insight on it in addition to Anderson and Krieger. The second, in relation to Senate 2820, there's a prohibition on the transfer of what they call military-grade equipment without the approval of the legislative body, which, as we all know here in Acton, is town meeting. Now, it depends upon how you define military-grade equipment. I think that's really open to a lot of interpretation. For many years, the highway department was very dependent upon getting military surplus pickup trucks and backhoes and bulldozers and that sort of stuff. And you would have to turn around and request the surplus equipment. There was even a surplus disposal office run through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts down in Taunton. You have to request the stuff, and then you'd have to turn around and pick it up fairly quickly. One of the more recent examples of that kind of transfer equipment is a command vehicle which is used for community events. It's parked behind the public safety building right now. That's just a box truck, but originally it had started out, it was actually a Navy piece of Navy equipment, which was used as an acoustical testing unit. That same thing, turned around, was able to pick it up and was able to reuse it. So I'm suggesting, and perhaps the town manager might be able to speak with the police chief about this, what could be the impact of that? Here are things that I think when people think military grade equipment, we're thinking of tanks and machine guns, but there's lots of other surplus military equipment which does become available from time to time by the town. And by saying that it has to be approved at a town meeting, basically eliminates the opportunity for us to benefit from that equipment, which basically is identical to civilian equipment, except it was built to military specifications. So with both of those issues, I'd like to task the town manager in doing some inquiry on that. Obviously, anything that we say or think about this isn't going to affect the vote that's already been taken in the Senate. However, we might want to look at the impact this might have in the deliberations in the House, and certainly into any consideration the governor might have as far as signing the bill, if these actually are real issues, which I've got some real serious fears about this qualified immunity elimination. So those are two tasks and questions I have for the town manager. Another question, well, John's on, see if he has any reaction. I still have one other unrelated point.
I've been here the whole time. I just turned my video off for a minute. I can look into both of those questions. I haven't read the most recent revisions to 2820 that you referenced. I am aware of some conversations that people are having in the labor community about qualified immunity and how it impacts other labor groups. And I can't speak to what the answer is at this time, but I can certainly look into it. And with regard to surplus equipment, I know we don't use much currently, other than some maybe ceremonial things. But it's certainly something that I can talk to the chief and others about to see how it would impact us.
Right. At the end of the Vietnam War, there was a great deal of this equipment available, and we benefited from quite a bit of it. As hopefully when things slow down a little more in the Middle East, there might be more equipment that might be available that could be repurposed for civilian use.
Bring back Alan Nelson.
Yeah, he was the collector. The other point that I have is regarding our most recent goal-setting meeting. I received some input from a number of constituents that were very concerned about the fact that, the usual way most people watch these meetings now is on YouTube. And the fact that it was eliminated off YouTube partway through the meeting, and I'm not really sure what the rationale was behind that, but as a board, we should try to be as transparent as possible. Arguably, that last goal-setting meeting was probably our most significant meeting of the year as far as getting everybody's ideas out on the table. And the fact that we rather precipitously eliminated any kind of, not that we were looking for public input, that was very clear, but I think the public could benefit and they're expecting to hear our deliberations on this. So I'm certainly going to put it on my calendar for next year. Number one, that we should solicit ideas for goals from the public well in advance of the meeting. And number two, we should make sure that the meeting, although it would not accept public comment, it certainly should be available so that the general public can watch the meeting and hear our points of view on things. So that's just sort of a calendar item for hopefully next April and May, if things go according to the way they're supposed to. And lastly, I understand, John Benson, the issue with it's going to be busy in August, and I certainly do not want to interfere with the town manager's vacation. If there's anybody here that needs a vacation, it's certainly Mr. Mangiarotti. But I hope that eventually we're going to get to the point of setting a schedule and sticking to it. Again, I get input from folks that, you know, our start times for meetings keep changing, our number of meetings keep changing, our dates of meetings keep changing. And I think that the public deserves some predictability so that they can watch us. We've gone through all kinds of effort trying to reach out to the public and engage them. And yet it seems inadvertently like we're making it awfully difficult for people to do that. So I'll get off my soapbox at this point.
Well, yeah, let me answer your second point first, and then your first point. You know, with regard to the you know, meeting schedule, we are living through a once in a century unprecedented crisis, where since normally we meet the first and third Mondays, since the middle of March, we decided to meet once a week, and many weeks we met 2 and 3 times, and that you know did require the meetings all have to be noticed 48 hours in advance, and the planning for that also had to take into account other committees that were meeting, the requirements of staff to be present to operate the meetings you know, remotely. So it was, you know, it wasn't done in any way to tamp down the viewership. I hope in September we can get back to first and third. But as I see this, it's we're not going to be out of the woods for probably another 18 months on this, and there may be times when we're going to have to, you know, meet more. And what I would suggest to people is they, you know, check in, you know, on the website, because it's set out there, you know, when we're meeting, and maybe we could improve upon that a little bit. To your first point about the why wasn't it televised on Acton TV? Historically, our goal-setting meeting is in the form of a retreat. We don't have it in our traditional location, the Faulkner Room. We move it over to the Chiefs Conference Room, where it is not televised. It's never been televised, but we do allow people to attend up there. So John and I just did make that decision, unilaterally, just keep the tradition going. We did discuss, should we do it? Should this be an exception? But we said, you know, it is going to be broadcast remotely, and but I would agree with you. If we're in the same position, you know, next year, we will include the link to the TV station, because that obviously was a mistake. Jim.
Just as a follow-up, looks like we're still not broadcasting on Acton TV on the live stream, and we're not on the radio.
Is there?
We do appear to be on the radio.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you.
And we are on Acton TV.
Oh, on the live stream, the government channel?
I believe so.
Okay. Okay, I'm just looking in the wrong places. Thank you.
So since we have a few minutes and we could take up our consent items, maybe we could inaugurate our members' minute now if anyone has anything to comment on. No, okay. So let's move to item 4, consent items. Item 16, approve executive session minutes, May 4, 2020. 17, approval of use of funds from Community Housing Program Fund, Acton Community Housing Corporation. 18, committee appointment, Maureen Bodner, full member, Agricultural Commission, term to expire 6/30/23. 19, committee appointments, Jonathan Campbell, associate member, Land Stewardship Committee, a term to expire 6/30/2021. Consent item 20, board appointment, Vicky Tardif, associate member, Zoning Board of Appeals, term to expire 6/30/2023. Item 21, committee appointments, Judith Hodge and Andrew Ricard, full members, Acton Community Housing Corporation. 22, committee appointment, Shirley Wang, full member, Economic Development Committee. 23, committee appointment, Dan Malloy, associate member, Economic Development Committee. 24, request for rate change, Cemetery Commission. 25, request for fee refund, Planning Division. 26, one-day entertainment license, Peter Valancourt, Rapscallion, August 1, 2020. 27, approve request for fee waiver, Acton Water District. Do I have a motion
So moved.
to approve items 16 through 27 inclusive?
Yes.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? David, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
Mr. Martin, aye. Unanimous.
Okay, so we're at 7:47. We have 13 minutes. If we could move into,
John,
yeah,
John Mangiarotti has his hand up.
yeah.
Just a question, did the board close the two earlier hearings formally? If so, if not, could it?
Okay, then when we have a motion to formally close the hearing for site plan special permit proposed parking lot expansion 8 and 10 Post Office Square, Acton, Massachusetts 01720.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Then would David please call the roll?
Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
Mr. Martin, aye. Unanimous.
Okay. Then I would, may we move to close the site plan special hearing on the application of Calaire Properties for a site plan special permit under zoning bylaw section 10.4 at 50 Nagog Park.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Then would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
Mr. Martin, aye. Also unanimous.
Mr. Mangiarotti, thank you very much. Good pickup. Okay, so we have about 11 minutes. John, could you give your presentation on the FY20 expenses and revenues?
I'd be happy to do that. Just wanted to mention that it was our legendary planner, Roland Bartle, that called that to my attention. Roland is retiring later this month. This may be his last meeting before the board. He is out there. Thanks for everything, Roland, and thanks for reminding me about closing that hearing.
And thank you too on behalf of the board, Roland. We'll miss you. Jim?
I'd be tempted to give a big speech about how awesome Roland is, but let me just say Roland is awesome. And it occurs to me also that we, now that we've closed the hearing on Nagog Park, we could actually approve the draft, the draft conditions. I don't think we took that vote either.
Well, we approved it. We approved the decision, which was in the conditions were in that decision.
Yes,
Okay.
we did approve that already. That was our fourth vote tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then, John. Okay.
Let's see, am I on here?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so thanks, members of the board. I just wanted to close the loop. FY20 isn't closed all the way, but we have much better information now than we had leading up to the last 2 weeks when we were talking about several concerns that both the board had and the finance committee had with FY20, and I'm pleased to report that the way it closed out worked out well. So I'll just walk you through some of the numbers. Excuse me. So this is as of a week or two ago. I'm pleased to report that we've collected more than 99% of all the real estate taxes that were due for FY20, which is a great testament to our residents and our businesses, and they really supported us this year, which was great. We were concerned that motor vehicles would be under our budgeted targets, but they in fact had such a strong year leading up to the pandemic that we were able to carry and hit our targets for motor vehicle. Same for permits and fees. I think we had a pretty strong year leading into March, and that carried us, and we almost hit our target there. And our investment income, we hit that as well. So the revenue picture was pretty solid, considering all of the concerns that we had and thought that we were concerned about. It worked out pretty well, largely due to the fact that a large majority of our income and revenue is from property taxes, and everybody paid them. And then so on the expense side, we were pushing very hard. Our departments sacrificed in the last 3 months, and they still are in some cases, sacrificing to make sure that we turn back enough to have a general fund turnback to keep our reserves intact. Our reserves are very important for a few things. They're important for our bond ratings, they're important for our financial stability, but they're also important if the economy changes drastically. And if that happens next year, we feel like we're in a much better position now because we turned back approximately 1.3 in expenses, which allows us to bring our free cash almost back to where we wanted it to be. So that's good news. The way we did that was through a hiring freeze, which we've already talked about at length. And this is something that I'm going to try to keep in place. As I mentioned, tax bills are due August 1st, and we'll know more then if there's any issues. And if there aren't, I think we need to start looking at some of these positions because the work isn't slowing down, as you know, and as you can see. But that was certainly a savings for the last quarter of FY20. We also didn't hire a lot of seasonal positions that we normally would. And we also curbed spending significantly and focused our spending on things that were COVID related. And many of those things actually were reimbursable. So that allowed us to turn back that money, which is a significant turn back and a significant sacrifice by all of our departments. And I appreciate all the work that they did to not only weather the pandemic, but to find ways to make this possible. So I appreciate all their efforts. So just kind of where we are from a financial standpoint related to COVID-19, we have spent just under $400,000 on PPE, staffing, technology, town meeting. We're starting to do more retrofits to our buildings. I mentioned we're trying to equip our outdoor spaces to try to better serve our public while we're not able to let them in. So that's a lot of that. And heavy duty cleaning that we've been doing on a much more intense basis than normal. And some of the other things, we're seeking reimbursement for just $267,000. We're applying for other grants through FEMA, and we hope that we will be successful with getting that money back. It doesn't come back right away, but it will come back if we're deemed eligible. We also, as you all know, have more than $2 million in CARES Act funding. We have initial in for our FY20 expenditures of just under $300,000. That includes items that I mentioned earlier and rental assistance and other things like legal assistance, things that we have our attorneys working on or our finance team working on that are CARES Act eligible. Oops. We did not get the additional CARES Act funding disbursement from the CBD grant program. We thought we had a pretty good application, but we found out over the weekend that we did not get it, which is unfortunate. But we're going to keep trying for more funding as they continue to release different ways that communities can access that funding. The school district is, I know, interested in discussing with us how this funding can be used to support some of the investments that they're making and that they'll have to make as part of their reopening plan. So that's a conversation that we'll be having this summer with them and with you. So that's sort of the update. So it's good news on FY20 and great work by departments to bring in a strong year of returns. And we're going to continue to utilize CARES Act and other resources to keep our community safe and keep our expenses low.
Are there any questions? David?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the town manager. Really an excellent turn back, more than expected. Obviously, a lot of work on your part and the staff's part. I think that puts us in a really good position coming into FY21, where we don't know what the the fiscal situation is going to be. But I also wanted to say, and I think you kind of indicated this in your remarks, that perhaps in some areas the hiring freeze should change to selective hiring. I know that there are a couple places, engineering, planning, maybe other places. I'm sure you know better than me that some of the hiring is a bit more critical. And I hope you do some selective hiring where the departments are in very tough shape because of people who've left or whatever.
Okay, thank you. We'll do.
Are there any further comments from board members? Are there any comments from members of the public?
Nobody has their hand raised, Joe.
Okay, we're at 7:58. Our third public hearing is due to start in 2 minutes, so let's just pause ourselves for a moment and
a quick joke?
Quick joke. We're all just too serious bunch of stiffs, yeah.
It might take 2 minutes to read the notice.
Can the notice be read before the time?
Roland?
Yeah.
Last question, Roland.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention for a moment. Can you repeat that? It's not 8 o'clock yet.
Can we read the notice before the actual time, or do we have to wait for the actual time to read the notice?
I would wait until the actual time, please.
Roland, when is your last day?
Monday next week.
Okay.
July 27th.
I think Jim had some remarks.
Just thank you. You were here the moment I arrived in Acton. You were instrumental in helping New View co-housing happen on Half Moon Hill by understanding what we were trying to do. And through the entire Acton 2020 plan, you were a key source of bringing together the work of the consultants and the committee and the public. You've just made a real positive difference in the town. Thank you for all your work. Enjoy not working.
Thank you.
And Roland, you had probably one of the toughest, if not the toughest jobs in town. And it was not a job where you're going to win friends, because every time you made a decision, half the people were angry. So thank you very much and all the best.
Well, you put the finger right on it. As long as 50% were happy and 50% were unhappy, I probably was doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, that's what good judges often say. If people leave the courtroom too happy, I didn't do a good job. So I guess we're at 8 o'clock, and I guess this will be your last public hearing. So the Acton Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, July 20th at 8 p.m. virtually on the application of John Perkins for a site plan special permit under zoning bylaw section 10.4 at 9 School Street, Acton, Mass, map H2-A-48 for information how to participate remotely and view the application materials, doc.acton-mass.gov/DSWEB/VIEW/collection, COLECTION. We have a letter. Is Mr. Perkins here tonight, or George DeMarcarkis? Well, the letter came in on behalf of our client, John Perkins. We hereby respectfully withdraw the application for a site plan special permit without prejudice. We also request the application fee of $2,500 and the peer review of $5,000 be returned for Mr. Perkins. There was a series of emails, or there was an email from Roland attached to that the application was filed in error. The project does not require a site plan special permit, although it may require other jurisdictional approvals before it can get a building permit. Then the question was asked to Mike and Tony, how much of the peer review deposit can we refund? Do we have an answer to that, Roland? The peer review deposit was $5,000.
No, I do not have an answer. Selby is pretty much running the peer review deposit money kind of flow, and I'm not aware of what money had been used and how much is still left over at this point, nor whether the peer review relative to the other jurisdiction like Chapter X, whether that has been completed or whether there's more work to be done.
Okay, and then the second question was with respect to the application fee of $2,500. May that be refunded in full?
I would leave it in the board's discretion only to say that we have not conducted a full review of the matter, or not really. Some departments have commented, but they typically had very brief comments. Can't say how much time they spend on it, but certainly planning did not spend any time reviewing it. My first look at it was like, why are they applying for a permit? And so it ended there. We can't speak for the other departments, but I think that the town's input was minimal. Public advertisements, in the newspaper and mailings are covered by the applicants separately. So we did not have any expenses there.
So with respect to the application fee, then would you have a recommendation on how much or all of the application fee should be refunded?
At the risk of minimizing other departmental efforts, I would say, keep $300 and return the rest.
So you would say $2,200?
Yeah.
To refund.
That would seem fair.
Okay. And then with respect to the peer review deposit, which was $5,000, should we hold on that and until we have some word from Selby?
I would recommend that maybe you can just vote to defer to Selby's, recommendation when it comes in
On the
for determination on the peer review fee matter.
The board could consider just voting to return any unused fees for the
Right.
peer.
for the peer review.
Right, because it was definitely expended. We definitely spent money, or money was spent on it. It may not have been the full amount, but I think if the board were to just say any amount not spent to date, that would probably be sufficient.
Okay. Are there any comments or questions from board members? David?
Yes, this is a question for Roland. My understanding of the project was, as proposed, was multiple buildings on that property, and since your feeling was that a special site plan, special permit wasn't required, does that mean that the multiple buildings would be allowed under South Acton Village zoning?
That's correct. The only time it triggers a separate special permit is if a proponent comes in with more than 4 dwelling units inside a building. That requires actually a use special permit at that point. But multiple buildings on a lot in the South Acton Village District are not subject to residential buildings are not subject to a special permit.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Board members, are there any comments or questions from the public?
There are no hands up.
Okay, so with respect to the site plan a special permit, I would move that we accept the withdrawal of the application for the 9 School Street site plan special permit without prejudice, and return the sum of $2,200 representing the balance of the application fee of $2,500, and that we refund the unused portion of the peer review fees paid of $5,000. Is there does anybody? Just a motion. Pardon?
You made the motion.
Yes, a second.
Yeah.
I'm seconding.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Maybe someone could articulate for me how the 300 makes sense to you. Probably okay. I'm just curious.
Yeah, that was Roland's sense of what was appropriate for the departments at Town Hall that spent time on the application. He thought that was just a fair number.
Okay.
No data. What?
Yeah, I saw comments from 2 departments in the folder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
So if there's any further comments or questions. So if David, if you would call the roll, please.
Yep, Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
Mr. Martin, aye, unanimous.
May I have a motion to adjourn,
Close.
to close this hearing?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Mr. Martin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Snyder-Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
Mr. Martin, aye. Also unanimous.
Okay, so moving along then, the next item would be updates and discussion regarding COVID-19 pandemic. John?
Thank you. For that item, I just wanted to mention that we did have a few week period where there weren't any cases in town, but over the last week and a half, we've had 5 new ones. The current number of active cases is 3. So we have 3 active cases in town. The total that have we've been confirmed through DPH is, I think, just at 180 at this point over the pandemic. So we're hoping that the trend isn't going to trend upward, but we are starting to see that statewide. So we're watching it very closely. We're really encouraging people to wear masks. Whenever they do anything near people, they can't be socially distant, especially when they're inside. Cheryl issued a memo that we posted online with some more information, because the Board of Health has been getting a lot of inquiries, residents calling and saying, I was at the store or I was at the park or whatever, and someone wasn't wearing a mask. And so we tried to provide a little more clarity on when it's required. And one of the things that it's difficult for us to deal with is that we can't ask somebody if they have a medical condition. So if someone's not wearing a mask, it's difficult for us to address that. So it's something that the Board of Health talked about last week, and I'm sure it'll be on their next agenda, just to continue the conversation about how to continue to enforce the governor's mask order and just encourage people to stay safe. And so that's that for the masks. The school district published their draft plan for transitioning back to school. It's available online at abschools.org. They've been working very hard to work within the state's guidelines for bringing students back in several forms, and they're going to continue to work on that. And I encourage people to check out that draft plan. Peter Light, the superintendent, has confirmed that he will be joining me on the last Friday of the month, which I think is the 31st, for Job with John. So there's a lot of people that have questions about it. And so I put that on your calendar to call that morning with him. He'll be there joining us and telling a little bit about what it's going to look like for school this year, because it's on everybody's mind. I know in my family, we're trying to understand what it's going to be like, and it's a big deal for the community. So I know they're doing a great job in planning for a very difficult situation. And I just wanted to mention what I referred to earlier, that we will be starting to offer some takeout services at a takeout window. If you're familiar with the back of Town Hall, there's a window on either side of the main vestibule, and we're looking to equip those as a finance takeout window and a land use takeout window, which are our 2 heaviest traffic offices. So look for that soon. And if you have any questions, please call the hotline, 978-929-6619. Thank you.
John, just one question. How long did we go without any new COVID cases?
I have a chart somewhere. It wasn't 2 weeks. It was more than a week, but not 2 weeks.
Okay. Are there any other questions for John with respect to the COVID update? Okay, thank you. Then let's turn to our short-term and long-term goals. These are what we voted on last week, and we asked John, as we've asked him the last couple of years, to take what we agreed upon and to just tweak the document where necessary. And this reflects John's tweaks.
And I have it in Word. I have it in Word also if there's any minor changes that the board wants to make. And if once approved, we can publish this online early tomorrow.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Comments? Any questions or comments from the audience? Jim first, I'm sorry. Jim?
I'm not sure quite the right time to bring this up, whether it's an amendment to a motion. Since I'm new here, I'm not sure. But as I sat over the weekend and thinking about the interesting goulash that is short-term goal 5. By goulash, I mean it sort of it blended together different ideas people had about the police department, and I'm not sure it's coherent as written, and I'm not sure it will allow us to understand at the end of the year if we've accomplished this or not. So I was going to, since we don't have time to talk about it tonight, I was going to suggest we replace it for tonight with a simpler goal, and take the time at a future meeting to listen to each other more and see if we can find a more coherent sense of how to work with these ideas about the police department.
Well, I think what we were talking about, what John changed there, was we were directing the town manager to provide complete funding for the police department. That was, Dean's suggestion that we go into the budget year with the instruction to fund the police department in full, and to work with the chief, on a public outreach program. Basically, that was my comment, to get out to the community to explain what is it that the police do, and how are they trained, how has police work changed over the last 20 years, how has their training changed, and he's directed to do that. I think the other part, the first part of the first sentence of the goal was conduct a study on the role of the police department as it relates to social service support, and consider ways to reimagine services provided. I think that would be a work in progress for the board, to develop, in the weeks ahead, as to how we might tackle that. That's in our domain, and I think that's what. I think some of that came from you, and I would welcome your comments on how to go about doing it. But I think all the pieces sort of fit, with 2 pieces directed to John to implement, and the last piece could stay within the board's realm to figure out how best to do that. And I would certainly look to your insights on that.
So I'm still left with the notion that the goal setting is best when it launches with enthusiastic, unanimous support of the board, so I would propose that we change goal 5 for now to something simpler, like focus on the role and image of the police department, which I think covers all that as a potential, and then take the time in future meetings to understand what it means. I don't want to believe everyone wants to.
Yeah, that did, get support, within the group. These are goals, and we say, this is what we'd like to do. Let's go out and and do it. It's it's not something we carry on and cogitate on, over a period of months. We spent, I think, more time last week, considerably more time on goal setting than we have in my prior 2 prior to goal-setting meetings. So we have directed the manager to take on, 2/3 of it. And I'm very happy to, look to your leadership on the study piece. How might you like to go about that? Because I think that came from you, David.
I was just wondering if before any of the actions here, are we coming back to the board? So presumably the manager, when he's ready to work on the other things, come back to the board with a more specific proposal. Is that right?
John, how did you view it?
In which case, we're discussing it anyway.
For me, I see the goals as a roadmap, and as I work with departments to develop a budget recommendation, it's something that I look very closely at to make sure that we're focusing on areas that the board prioritized for the year, particularly with short-term goals, but also with an eye to long-term goals. If it's a specific action item and it's on the goals list, I make a point to provide periodic updates on how we're doing and make sure that we're on the right track for what the board wants to see. Some goals the board may want to take on entirely on its own and discuss every week, or have someone designated to take it on. I'm willing to work with however the board wants to move forward, but I generally try to attack all of them as quickly as I can to make sure that we have 11 goals here, and some of them are multiple here, so there's more like 15 if you're counting. So we have a lot of work to do, and I'm happy to get started on it when the time comes.
Are there any further comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Dean?
Yeah, it's probably not the most coherent statement, but I think the important thing is we had a full discussion of this at a goal-setting meeting. And I think we've given the town manager our feelings that, there are items here that are important to one or more of us. And I think that all of those should be incorporated. I think it gives us some guidance. And it gives us some latitude. Obviously, when we come to things like the funding of the department, that's all going to be subject to discussion by the board during the budget process. The same way as, if we decide to, start hiring more social workers, that's going to have a budgetary impact. So we'll have lots of opportunities to discuss that. So I personally would be strongly opposed to changing anything at this point. I think we just go ahead and we do it. And if people have any particular items of interest, then, they can write some stuff up and circulate it around, especially as far as that study might be held. Any input as far as a study, obviously it can't be just from us. It's got to be from policing specialists, and I'd look to our police chief and others on that. So I think we stick with what we've got.
Any further comments?
Just a question.
Sure.
I guess either for the board or for John, about how does he take the provide complete funding of the police department? Does that mean that he'll aim that in the next fiscal budget, the FY 2022 budget, that the size that the police department full funding takes priority over full funding of other departments if we have shortfalls, because we're about to approach a very potentially difficult fiscal year, with the schools potentially needing more funds and the town operations needing more funds. So I just want to understand what this meant to the manager and to the board. I'm concerned that
could you move closer to the microphone?
Sorry, I'm concerned that taking one department and prioritizing its funding over all the other departments is not a fiscally wise thing to do in a situation where, we don't know.
I'll let Dean respond. Dean?
Yeah, I draw a parallel here with the discussion that we had before Jim was on the board, but it was only about a month ago. There was a letter that was submitted by an environmental group that wanted us to vote to encourage full funding for certain environmental programs on the state level. And the board voted that. And with the full understanding that things might happen and the Senate and the legislature and the governor might have other feelings, but we wanted to let our feelings be heard as a board in support of these environmental programs. I think it was something that was brought to our attention by Bettina. And that's fine. And this is sort of the same opinion that we've got. Certainly, if the bottom falls out, then it's important that we be able to look at all departments. But I don't want to start out the year with this thought that we're going to randomly defund the police just based on, the sorts of issues that people might see in other parts of the country. I personally, we did speak specifically about the police department, but my feeling is that we should fully fund all of our departments. And, how we define fully funding, that's level funding or level services. I think that should be our objective with everything. But specifically the way people have been throwing rocks at the police department, I think it's important that we understand that we're not going to randomly cut the police department budget just to provide a lot of virtue signaling. So that's certainly, if it becomes that there's a major budget problem, we're going to have to look at police, fire, libraries, senior center, whatever. But I don't want to start randomly deciding to cut a particular department. And I think this is an important statement we have to make, and I think it's supported by a large portion of our electorate. Thank you.
I agree with you.
Thank you, Joan. Are there any further comments from board members? Are there any comments from members of the public?
No one with their hand up now.
Okay, so may I have a motion for the board to approve our short-term goals?
John?
Yes.
One person did raise their hand.
Okay, sure. Okay. And
Alyssa, please identify yourself.
This is Alyssa Nickel. I'm at 76 School Street. I just have one request to make, that goal number 1, the term African Americans be changed to either Black or BIPOC, because I believe that there are residents in town who may not be American citizens, and I'm sure that there are residents in town who are Black who don't identify themselves as African. The founder of the Black Lives Matter Acton group happens to be a Haitian immigrant and identifies not as African but as Haitian.
so you would, Alyssa, you would strike African Americans and substitute
Either Black or BIPOC, which stands for Black, Indigenous, People of Color. And I did check in with Black Lives Matter. The founder, Levinsky Jasmine, did say that he feels Black is more inclusive than African American.
So you want to say,
So she's suggesting that we say Black Americans instead of African Americans.
Actually just Black, because I think that there are Acton residents who are not Americans. They're not citizens, but they're residents, and I think that they need to be the focus of this listening and hearing what they have to say about their experience in town.
so would you be comfortable with Black individuals?
No, actually, I would rather leave it as Black Americans. But earlier in the sentence, it describes other groups of people. I think it says especially Black Americans or African Americans, which I consider synonymous for a reason. And I think we should leave it. I don't object to changing African to Black, but I would object with.
So you would suggest Black Americans, David?
I would.
Okay. Would it,
Is that a motion?
okay, so may we have a motion then in goal 1 to change the term African Americans to Black Americans?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
No.
We have to call the
Yeah. Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Yeah.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
Mr. Martin, aye. That's unanimous.
Okay, so,
Oh, sorry, one person had their hand up, but they put it back up again. Can I allow one more person to talk?
sure, please.
Mr. Post?
I had my hand up before you did your vote, but that's all right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question to you is obviously item number 11. Select a site or secure, which is pretty strange, but secure a site for a town dog park. Are you looking at other sites, or is there only one site you're looking at?
That was my goal, and the big issue that the committee has run into is they've worked really hard on the dog park. They've come up with the funding mechanism. They've responded to all sorts of questions. They always get stuck on the spot. They'll look at a spot, this is it, and then the neighbors object, and they move on to another spot. The key thing for the dog park is to secure or find or select a spot. I use the word secure because that was, I think, the strongest I could come up with.
So, and I understand John's point as far as, time and everything else because things get in the way. But for short-term goals, what are you anticipating? Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months?
Short-term goals are typically something that could be accomplished within a year.
Okay. All right. Very good. So that tells me that the board is pretty much in favor of a dog park of some sort somewhere.
That's fair, I think.
Okay. Thank you.
May I make a comment, Mr. Chair?
Sure, David.
Yeah, I have to say, with regard to the residents of Isaac Davis Way, it's very difficult to negotiate with someone who has a gun to your head. The town is also has property on the front of Isaac Davis Way. For me, it's very difficult to take anything they have seriously as long as they're threatening the AHA project unless they get their way. So that's just my input.
Are there any further members of the public who wish to comment on our goals for the next year?
I would like to comment on that, please.
Matt?
So, David, I apologize if you think that I'm threatening you, okay?
But Mr. Post, you are threatening.
No, I'm
It's
not.
just one person at a time.
I'm not threatening you, David, and this is the deal. We have been omitted from this entire process, and all of us feel that this is being shoved down our throat. There has not been one time when somebody from the Board of Selectmen, has been willing to sit down with us and discuss what's going on. So if that would happen, we could avoid all of this. So I'm not holding a gun to your head. I'm telling you what's legally our responsibility is to Isaac Davis Way. You can think of it any way you want, but that's the deal. So I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm not a confrontational person. I happen to care about what happens around my neighborhood, all right? It affects all of us. And nobody here wants it, but you're still pushing it. So if you want to talk to us about it in a nice level atmosphere, call me and we'll set up a meeting. Happy to do it.
Well, let me ask you as a threshold question, Matt.
Sure.
Are there any circumstances under which you and your neighbors would accept a dog park on the 348 to 364 Main Street site?
I would have to say after our conversations that we've had, no. So if that's what you think is, the way to do it. I know the sites that they were looking at before. I've been involved in this process since the beginning. So, the other sites you're looking at are far better, far safer, and make much more sense, and they're far less cost expensive. This is going to be a huge cost to the town. Huge.
You mean sites in other parts of town?
Yes. And I told them from the very beginning that I was in favor of a dog park. Okay. I think it's a great idea, but it doesn't belong in the center of Main Street in Acton off of the worst intersection in the town on Route 2. It's a very dangerous place. So think
Okay,
about the
but the answer, but you said none of us want to comment. We've not come and sat down and talked with you. The question I had, are there any circumstances under which your neighbors would accept a dog park on the, I think it's the 348
So now that
Main
we have
Street site.
right, so now that we have a dialogue, I would be happy to sit down with my neighbors and ask them that question. And if we want to set up a meeting and talk to us about it, this may turn differently. I don't know, but that's since we've been ignored, that's what you're getting from us.
Okay, so would you like to you want to speak to your neighbors first, and then I can call you later in the week and we can set up a meeting?
Yes, please.
We'll do that. Okay, thank you.
There's one other person, and then one person who hasn't identified themselves, which I'm not going to unmute, but can I let Mike Majors talk?
Please.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I just want to say with regard to the the dog park, that there have been numerous public forums about the development of the Main Street sites. The dog park was clearly one of those. So clearly, the residents of Isaac Davis Way were informed, had a chance to speak, and unanimously approved the site for the Acton Housing Authority, of which that site included a park, possibly a dog park. And I just think if there ever is another committee, we should reconvene the Main Street Master Plan Committee to discuss this, because I think there was a very long planning process, and I believe it was our opinion that one of the reasons the Housing Authority plan was approved was because the Isaac Davis Way community approved that site. And if they're not approving it, then I think we need to question the plan for the entire parcel, because without that dog park, that land, it's just worthless, and its location is just unsuitable for development. The town has already taken a financial loss by dealing with by putting houses there. And I just think maybe we, before they do anything extreme, we really need to talk about it. But I think it was the impression of the Main Street Master Plan Committee that the neighborhood had bought in to a park on that parcel, which also included, which could have included a dog park. And, I just think they're saying, not in my backyard. It's just my opinion.
Well, I think we made a little bit of headway tonight, because it sounds like if we talk, there may be circumstances under which the three Isaac Davis path abutters might be amenable. I mean, other towns have had to deal with like situations, and there are ways to address it, and apparently there may be some interest expressed this evening in going down that road. So let's pursue it.
John,
Yes, Joan.
I'm the liaison to the Dog Park Committee, and the Dog Park Committee has had a virtual meeting with the neighbors.
I'm aware of that. I was just picking up under what Mr. Post said we haven't sat down with him, he'd be willing to talk. So that's why I asked him, are there any circumstances under which you would be you and your neighbors would be amenable to a dog park on the site? So let's pick it up. And you will be there. Jim.
I was noticing that we do have 348 Main Street on the agenda a little bit later. So I wonder
Yeah,
if we could,
that's not for the dog park, though.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
not for
that's
the-
right.
That's a,
Yeah.
Okay, so,
So I would like to return to the topic of the goals. I'd
okay,
like to complete the discussion about goal 5 and just to understand where the board members are at. I'd like to make a motion that we change item 5 to simplify.
no, we have before the House a motion to change the term African American to Black Americans. That's what we have pending.
We passed that.
Let's do that first.
But
We passed it. Okay, so so you have a motion, Jim?
Yeah, to help a discussion, I'd like to move that we change 5 to remove the reference to social service support, remove the reference to reimagining services, remove the references to complete funding, and just so that we can talk about it, so we can work out what these competing sub-goals mean together, and change the language to focus on the role and image of the police department, which I think leaves room for us to do all those things if the board wants to.
So is there a second to Jim's motion? David seconds it?
I would just like to comment if I might.
Well, do we have a second to the motion?
Just for the purpose of being able to comment on it.
Well, I think a motion has to be seconded to comment on.
I'll second it then.
Okay,
Normally a person who seconds votes in favor, and I haven't decided.
I can't hear. I'm sorry.
Normally a person who seconds votes in favor, and I just haven't decided, so that's probably the reason why I was hesitant to second.
Okay,
So, and I understand that this is a confusing motion, it's a confusing item or goal, but the situation to me is a little confusing. I'm happy with it as long as we return to the board to discuss these things as we implement them, right? So to me, this said a handful of things, or maybe not quite a handful, that we want to support the police department with full funding, that we want to have the police department connect with the residents of the town. We want to consider the police department's relationship with the way we provide social services. I think those are all good things. And my only concern, Jim, with the language that you're proposing is that those things are then removed from the text. And I think it's important to have those things in the text because that's what we talked about. And I don't see, I think you see this as limiting our actions or something in some way. I'm not sure. You could just say for yourself. I don't see this as limiting. And I understand that it's a bit of a hodgepodge goal, but it has those elements which I mentioned, which I think we did all agree to, and how they come out. We need to do more work, and I don't think we can decide that right here. And so, to me, I have a choice between reduced wording and decide the details later, or retain the wording that we had with the details that we put in and decide later. And I think I'd rather leave it the way it is myself. That's just my.
Jim, do you have any further thoughts?
Could I wait until anybody else who wants to speak to it speaks to it?
Sure. Is there anybody else on the board who wishes to comment on Jim's motion? Jim?
comment on it.
Dean?
Yeah, We've gone over this repeatedly. I think it's time to just vote it the way it is. I think there's plenty of latitude here. We can't spend the next 6 months trying to wordsmith one little sentence. Let's just take the vote on the short-term goals and get this done and move on.
Second.
Okay, so, Jim, do you want to, your motion has been seconded. Do you
No,
wish to put it to a vote?
I didn't second. I
No,
just-
no. I think David seconded.
I seconded it.
Oh, all right.
So do
Yeah,
you,
just a final, I guess as a final comment, I think the reason we were talking about the police department was because the issues have been raised in the context of this moment that we're in. And I'm concerned that it sends the wrong message. I know that some of this is message sending. I think it sends the wrong message to say we will completely fund the police, even if that's what we end up doing. I think it says that we're being defensive. We're being concerned that people raising issues about policing are going to somehow be able to, stop us from funding the programs that we want to fund. So we need to say it in a short-term goal that, we will, as we develop the next budget, make sure the police are fully funded. I think it's just the wrong approach, I think. So that's why I raised it as an issue, and I'm glad we could talk about it. Thank you.
okay, so you want to go forward on your motion?
Yes.
Okay, so if there's no further discussion, let's vote on Jim's motion, and if the clerk would, if David would call the roll, please.
Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
No,
Mr. Charter,
No,
Mr. Benson,
No.
Mr. Martin, also no. And so it loses 4-1.
Okay. So may I have a motion then to adopt short-term goals 1 to 11 and long-term goals 1 to 8?
so move.
Is there a second?
second.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
I think we worked really hard on these. I think it's a wonderful list. I know I expressed my concern about that particular one, but I just want to say, given the time constraints we had, I think we did a really good creative job of coming up with short and long-term goals.
Thank you. So with the, David, would you call the roll on the motion to adopt the short and long-term goals, please?
Yes, Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
Mr. Martin, aye, unanimous. So,
Okay.
and therefore, as I understand it, these are exactly as on the screen, except the word African changed to black.
That's right. Okay, so the next item is item 9, approve the fee modification for liquor licenses, and I would refer us all to the memo that Selby sent to John dated July 7. The subject, liquor license fee reimbursement. Can we put that up on the screen? Is that possible?
Yep, 1 second, please. You can see that, I assume?
Mm-hmm. John, do you have any comments?
Just that this is something that I know the board inquired about a few months ago, and we looked at it with finance, and it's something that we could do through a return of fees already paid, so it wouldn't be an issue. legally, and it's something that we bring to the board as a recommendation to help some of our businesses. Again, this doesn't impact folks that sell package stores. This is not package stores. This is just restaurants who normally would have been serving customers, and they do pretty well from their liquor license. And for 3 months, and in some cases longer, they weren't able to do much of anything in terms of sales. So this was sort of a relief effort for those establishments.
Okay. David?
Yeah, I was wondering, John Mangiarotti, if you know of any restaurants that are no longer serving alcohol, either because they don't have any outside seating or for whatever reason, they're just doing takeout. And if there are any such restaurants, I think there might be one, whether we should refund all of their liquor license until such time as they can serve alcohol again.
I know that there's one that the gentleman emailed the board about not too long ago. I believe it's a restaurant in
North Acton.
Yeah, near Red Raven.
Maori.
Lisa, are you Lisa Tommel? Are you here?
I think it's Maori.
Yeah, but it is. Yeah, that's the one. But I wonder if Lisa can give us an update on the rest of the license holders, rather.
Lisa, if you're there, you have to unmute.
She may be watching the YouTube channel, so she can't talk on that.
I'm here. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any businesses that are still closed that aren't using their license right now?
The only one I know of is Maori Indian Restaurant. That's the one that was really, really struggling.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I continue, John?
David, sure.
Does it make sense to other members of the board for restaurants that cannot serve alcohol in their current circumstance that we not charge them their liquor license at all until they can again?
Well, let's see. I think what if I understand this correctly, it's a reimburse 25 cents for the liquor license fees for the really it's for the last quarter of the fiscal year that just ended. That's correct, John?
That's correct. I think if this doesn't have anything to do with any future fees they may pay, this is fees that they have already paid.
I understand. Then I'm fine then. So we could entertain, in the next quarter or quarter after to refund a percentage for restaurants that haven't served alcohol at all.
Yeah, I think a thing we're going to be, looking at is, these restaurants are serving outdoors. That's going to be good through September, maybe into October. We don't know what's going to happen after that. I mean, that could be very problematic and going indoors.
I'm fine. I understand now that this is looking just backwards to the last quarter. Thank you.
Okay, Jim? Joan?
Well, I was going to make a motion to
adopt Selby's recommendation.
Yeah, the liquor license fee reimbursement for 19, is it, and 5/24?
I think what it would be is
25% of their license fee in each case.
So move.
I'll second.
Okay, is there any further board comment? Jim?
Yeah, I had a question. When it seemed like there was a time when the regulations on serving alcohol to go got lifted or changed, and maybe someone can refresh me on that. Are there restaurants that have been able to serve beer or wine with their takeout food?
Yes.
So for those, it seems like they have not lost entirely out of the benefit of being able to serve liquor, but they've clearly the volume's gone down.
Yeah, it's a question of volume, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm sorry, members of the board, may I interrupt?
Sure.
Thank you, and hello, members of the board. There are certain restaurants that have not been able to serve during this time because of their locations, such as Benjamin, places where their location is. They could not put up like different areas where they could serve outside. We only approved about 9 locations. For those that didn't have that possibility, would you consider doing it for all restaurants, all 19 restaurants, for their ability to have that, what was it, 25%?
Yeah, that's my motion.
Okay, thank you, Joan.
Yeah, we were, Lisa, we were adopting Selby's, Joan's motion adopted Selby's recommendation.
Okay, I was just making that sure in my notes. Thank you.
So it applied to the 19 all alcohol pouring and the 5 beer and wine pouring.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a second to Joan's motion. We have that.
I second it.
So is there any further discussion from members of the board? Is there any comments from the public?
Nobody with their hand raised.
Okay, so David, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
Mr. Martin, aye, unanimous.
Okay. Well done. So our next item would be approve residences at Kelly's Corner pilot agreement.
Thank you. So this was initially posted on the agenda as reviewing a pilot agreement. And Steve Jonkus of Common Ground is here to explain further what he's actually asking the board to consider. Steve, are you with us? And I apologize that part of the pace of these weekly meetings is that some of the stuff we can't get to as final form as we'd like to, and we just put on the agenda to make sure that we can have the discussion, and some things worked out since then. And Steve Jonkus is here. I think we just need to allow him to speak.
I just need to figure out.
Oh, you're on. You're on.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the board's time. John and Brian McMullen and I have had different conversations about the idea of the 31 residences at Kelly's Corner that we proposed. And I thought that if it's helpful to the board, I might give you a brief update as to our status. We've submitted 2 applications now to the Department of Housing and Community Development for the various funding sources that would allow us to actually construct and make this project available to seniors who are 62 years old and over, who would be at 60% of the area median income or below, and their rents would be restricted to equal 30% of their income at those rent levels. The challenge that we have with financing this project is that DHED receives twice as many applications as they do funding to support these transactions. And we've submitted in what's called the one-stop rounds twice now, the last 2 years. Our most recent application was in February of this year, and we learned in June that we were not selected. We did have a debriefing session with them, and they had very positive things to say about the project design. They asked questions about the level of community support, which in my mind has been very significant. I don't know if Roland is still on the line, but I have to say that Roland and the planning department have been extraordinarily professional in helping us with this project, giving us straightforward answers to any questions as we went through the 40B approval process. And we greatly appreciate his input. I think we ended up with a better project because of the planning department, the zoning board of appeals, and the other organizations who made comments about our design and our approach. We were encouraged to apply in this coming August in what DHCD calls its mini round. And the mini round is reserved for projects that they deem to be highly ready to proceed. And our plans are at about 70% complete based on DHCD's review architect input. We need to do a little bit better job of coordinating the design amongst the various trades, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, etc. And we need to be certain that we respond to some other minor questions. The other major portion of what they look to is being able to allow residents, seniors, to age in place for as long as possible. So we've made changes over the last year to our design so that all of the Group 1 units can be easily converted to Group 2. That means that all of the units will have roll-in showers, and the bathrooms will be fully accessible. It means that the kitchens can have the cabinets underneath the sinks easily removed. And it means that the kitchens will also have cooktops and wall-mounted ovens in order to meet their design criteria. We feel fairly confident about being competitive in this upcoming mini round. If we're not successful in the mini round, the way the process works is that we submit a pre-application in October of this year. And if we're invited, we'll submit a complete one-stop application in January of 21, and hopefully here by May or June of next year as to whether or not we're funded. If we're successful in the mini round, then obviously that time frame accelerates. We probably know by the end of the calendar year whether or not we're funded, and we'd be able to close hopefully by the beginning of the third quarter of 21 and commence construction. I know that in the conversations that we've had with John and Brian, we use the term pilot, which, as you know, stands for payment in lieu of taxes. We had experience with a project in the town of Westford, developing 36 units for families, whereby we leased the land from the Westford Housing Authority. And because of that land lease, we were able to include the Housing Authority as part of the ownership structure, and thus qualify legally for a pilot agreement. Our transaction, of course, for the residences at Kelly's Corner is a totally private transaction. It's a private landowner. We have a private agreement to purchase the property, We've just exercised our option to extend the closing date to November 2nd. Between now and November 2nd, we'll be securing financing to actually do the acquisition. And we're doing it because we're very confident that we'll be able to secure DHCD's approval at some point. The challenge that we have is that in one of the debriefing sessions, DHCD said, we'd really like to see you increase your budget for services to seniors, which we did in this last round. But we're finding that if you look to a projection over the 20-year period, it does have an effect on our cash flow, which affects our debt service coverage and our ability to meet the covenants that the primary debt folks will impose on us. For example, in year one, if we had modeled originally $31,000 a year for property taxes, and we're looking to change that based on the restrictions on rent income that will last in perpetuity to keep this project affordable for seniors in perpetuity to $15,000. And the difference would be going from a debt service coverage of 1.2 to 1.09. And that would be below the 1.1 debt service coverage that our lender would require. When we get to year 20, the debt service coverage goes down to 1.05. And that's because we see historically that expenses have increased more rapidly than the rents actually increase. So 1.05 again would put us at below the covenants, generating $7,700 in cash flow, which if we have one more vacancy than we expect, obviously would disappear. So for that reason, we're hoping that we can work with Brian on valuing and assessing the value of the property so that it results in a property tax and that the project can actually sustain. So the request tonight is really to inform you of our efforts and to ask that if it's appropriate to just indicate your support for our ongoing development and proposals with DHCD. I noticed that I think item 17 had a request on funding with the Acton Community Housing Corporation, and Nancy Tavernier, over the course of the years that we've been involved with this, actually introduced me to the opportunity to take over this project from Steve Steinberg. And the Community Housing Corporation has been very supportive, as has past boards of selectmen. They actually voted to provide up to $500,000 in local support. And when I met with them on the 13th, they voted to increase that to $550,000, which I think item 17 addresses this evening. The reason local support is so critical is that DHCD looks to the level of commitment on the part of the locality as an expression of, yes, in fact, these projects are needed to address our housing issues, and an indication that we understand that DHCD has limited resources as well. So we're trying to, communities are acting to provide levels of support. As an example, this last round, a project in in Concord was approved, 80 units assisted living, and the town of Concord provided $2 million in local support. We can't imagine doing that level of support because the resources just aren't available. And we think $550,000 is a significant commitment. Previous boards have also waived the building fee as part of our 40B process, the building permit fee, as well as reduce the sewer connection fee. So we're very enthusiastic about the level and appreciative about the level of support that we've received from the town thus far. We're looking to just increase our edge to show that we're responding to DHCD's concerns about local support, and that's why the request for the ability to work with the assessor on the tax, and that's why the additional support from ACHC is really critical to us.
Questions and comments for Steve? David.
Yes, Mr. Donkus. I just wanted to be clear. You said given some extra services, it was difficult for you to balance your expenses on an ongoing basis. And I'm unclear at the end of your remarks whether the other types of support you might get, does that fix that problem, or do you still have a problem?
Well, we're doubling our level of finance, our level of financial commitment to providing resident services. And we've entered into an agreement between our property management firm, PB Properties, and Minuteman Elder Services. We've also received support letters from the Council on Aging. We're signing up for the Tri-Town Transportation services, so that elderly residents who don't have their own means of transportation can take advantage of that. And we recently learned that the town has its own nursing services that can provide medical assistance to residents. So we'll be including all of those services as a result of increasing our budget toward serving our residents.
Thank you.
Jim? Jim?
Yeah. This project just keeps getting better in the way I'm hearing about it and reading about it. I think that your commitment to increase your ability to serve people to age in place is exactly consistent with both our comprehensive community plan and the goals of our recent housing production plan. And the way that has also the way that also has moved you towards increasing the number of units that can be made accessible to 100% is also just a wonderful change to see. And I understand that impacts your the finances, and I know we can't make specific recommendations to the assessors, but I'm happy to say that as a board member, I'm enthusiastically in support of this project, and my level of support has only increased as the project has evolved.
Thank you.
Dean?
Yeah, Mr. Jonkus and I interacted quite a bit. I was working for the town when we did the old high school commons project, which was just a remarkable project, and I can't speak more highly of the way he carried that off. What looked like it was going to be a disaster, and it really worked out well. So once again, I'll second what Mr. Snydergrant said. I think it's a great project, and I think, I'd encourage him to continue working with the town manager and the assessor, and I think he's got a very receptive board here, at least from me and obviously from Jim.
Thank you, Dean.
Other member comment? I would certainly support what Jim and Dean said. It's, it's a wonderful project. And Steve, what help, additional help could we give you? From what I understood from Nancy Tavernier is that the state gives far greater weight for money contributions. Like Concord put up $2 million for their 80-unit assisted living facility. And they've kind of looked askance at the $500,000 that ACHC came up with, because that money was paid to them by Concord in connection with the Concord Muse project. And further, they don't look so wholeheartedly on in-kind contributions, such as waiving fees, which is sad and unfortunate. Is there any specific thing we can do to, push the project over the top?
So I think it's true that DHCD looks at the waiver of fees in one way, and they look at actual cash in another way. So the ACHC commitment is cash. And in fact, they've helped us along the way with the various pre-development costs. For example, it takes a good deal of money to get the architects to design a project to 70% completion. So I wouldn't say that the ACHC's contribution is looked at less favorably because it came from the Concord Muse gift fund. In fact, cash is cash, and I think that's viewed in a favorable way. There was some confusion because the approvals and the amendments to our agreement, there were several. First, there was the $500,000 commitment. Then there was an amendment to the agreement that allowed us to use $50,000 to match our $50,000 towards $100,000 worth of pre-development cost. And as we advanced the project, ACHC advanced up to another $60,000 to match our 60. So at this point, they've advanced $110,000 of the $500,000 that they committed originally. And we've matched that and in fact exceeded it because our pre-development costs have gone beyond the total of $210,000. So to me, that even demonstrates a greater commitment, because it's one thing to support a project at financial closing when you know that all the other sources are already there. But it's another level of commitment to actually support the development process as we're going through design, permitting, and application for funding. So we're going to do a better job, I hope, of making that clear to DHCD in this mini round that comes up. And hopefully we'll be successful. As to what else you could do?
Yes.
Look, I know you have other priorities.
No, this is important. Your project is really good. We have a 5 to 6 year wait list for seniors in our town looking for affordable housing so they could stay in Acton.
You have another project that's kind of in the pipeline.
That's a couple of years out. We need them both.
I don't want to be in a position where I'm saying to you, take resources away from another town-sponsored project in order to benefit us. And I don't know where else you could come up with financial support other than the sources that you have, which I guess would be CPA money, which I understand is the source of this additional $50,000.
Well, we have a we have a special town meeting coming up in September, where we could bring a request to use X dollars from free cash to contribute to the effort. I'm speaking for myself. Would that be something worthwhile?
I'm sorry, Mr. Martin.
Yeah, no, the chair has to call him.
No.
So my answer to that would be the time frame for the mini round is an August 6th pre-application. And the pre-application will provide them information about what our funding sources would be. Based on the pre-application, we hopefully will receive an invitation to submit what we call the one-stop application, and that's due on September 30th.
And this is all part of the mini round.
That's part of the mini round, that's correct.
And if you're successful, they'd let you know by November, is that it?
The annual round, they pushed up the dates for pre-applications from the end of November to the end of October. And since we've been invited in the past to submit one-stop applications twice, I have no doubt that we'd be asked to submit a one-stop application again. And instead of February, that would be due in January. So I'm not sure how your town meeting schedule might mesh with the application process.
You could always amend the application, can't you?
We can amend from the pre-application to the actual submission of the one-stop.
When's the one-stop?
Once the one-stop is submitted, there's no additional amendments allowed.
Dean?
Yeah, I think I'm very supportive of this project, but I think Mr. Jonkas points out, we've got a lot on our plate. We know that there's going to be a huge amount of money that's going to be requested from CPA for the Acton Housing Authority project, which we're going to discuss hopefully in a few minutes. And frankly, at this point, when the town manager and the town staff and everyone was so careful about trying to save money and turn money back so that we'd have free cash available for who knows what is going to happen, I think going to town meeting to try to reallocate that from free cash into this project, that's a non-starter, certainly with me, and I would expect with most anybody else. I can't get behind that at all, John.
Okay. David?
I guess I'm a little bit in between. I certainly wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't want us to do anything without a specific recommendation from the ACHC, right? So, I mean, if the ACHC recommended that we do something, I think that we can discuss that. I wouldn't take that action on our own. I mean, they already took that action for the extra $50,000, which makes a difference, I think. So, just by comparison with the Concord Muse project, Concord subsidized, or whatever you want to call it, contributed $25,000 a unit. With the extra $50,000, we're up to $17.7 thousand a unit. So, I mean, we're not as much as Concord, but it's not. I don't believe it's, like we're ignoring the project or anything. And so bottom line for me is, I think if to change. For me to change, I would want a specific recommendation from the ACHC.
Well, I think that what you're hearing is they weigh more favorably cash contributions made by the town towards these projects over in-kind contributions.
But this was cash. The thing we did in line item 17 today was cash.
Yeah, that's 50,000.
Right.
I was talking another slug.
Right. Well, So the ACHC did 50,000. I wouldn't want to do another slug unless the ACHC said they needed another slug.
Yeah, well, they won't tell you till after they reject the application. Dean?
I think this discussion has gone way beyond what was envisioned in the agenda. And I think we should move on.
Okay. So are there any further questions or comments for Steve Joncas? Okay. Are there any questions, comments from the public?
Yes, one person has their hand raised.
Please.
Please identify yourself.
Hi, it's Tara calling from West Acton, and I want to thank the developer for, I guess 10 units are now for people, households making 30% or less. Is that correct still?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. And I wanted to check on the reference to the Acton Housing Authority list about the number of people and the time waiting on that list. And I'd like to know what percentage of the people on that list would qualify for the 60%. And because it's my understanding that is it the minimum 60%, or they have to get about 60% median to qualify to be able to live there?
The 10 units would be at incomes at 30% or below. And the balance, the 21 units, would be at 60% of area median income or below. So
okay.
the rent in that case would be, the rent in that case would be about $1,246, I think, including.
Yeah, because I'm not opposed to the project at the time, but I do have an issue with talking about the Acton Housing Authority list if the majority of the people on that list couldn't afford $1,200. So talking about meeting a need and then using a list of people who can't afford that would seem disingenuous. And I just urge you not to do that. So that's all. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public?
Yes, one person has their hand. Oh, no, she put it down. No one.
Okay, so Steve, thank you very much and keep us updated.
Will do, and again, appreciate the support. And I just want to say that we're confident that this project is going to happen. If not in this mini round, be patient with us. We're making the commitment to acquire the site so that we can continue to compete for DHCD funding in the upcoming annual round, if that's the case.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for your support.
Thank you. So the next item would be to discuss a special town meeting, a timeline. So John?
Thank you. Yes, we've been looking at September since the board has been talking about a special town meeting, and the preference generally is having them on Monday nights. There aren't too many Monday nights available in September. Mark Hald put together a overview, which includes the articles that were pulled from the last warrant, which I know, John, I spoke to you about this last week. There was a couple that I forgot about, but they're included in what Mark's going to present right now. And also the question that I'd ask the board to consider now, and we can start planning with any additional feedback that you provide, is if you want to do where you want to do it, and if you want to do it entirely outside. I think choosing one location from our perspective, would be easier to plan rather than doing it inside outside, even though that was a lot of fun. Yeah. So Mark, can you share your screen and run through what you put together?
Yes.
Thanks.
Give me 1 second. So is that showing?
Yes.
The agenda. Okay. So this is the document that we put together it's a three-part document for the board to aid in your consideration for an encore to the annual town meeting. It has one new article, which is the Piper Lane land acquisition. And then the rest of them, the 5 remaining ones, are ones that are deferred from the annual town meeting that we took off mainly because of just potential lengthy discussion that we wanted to avoid and keep the meeting short. So of these 6 articles, I proposed in here 4 of them be placed on consent, but of course that's the board's purview. Second article is the town charter change for the title of the board. And then these 2 accept legislation articles are carried forward, pretty non-controversial. The Strawberry Hill Road, there's a restriction that is requested to be removed from this parcel. I believe it is so that this area here in green can be improved for sightlines. I think there are probably people in the room here that know a little bit more about this than I do. And then the zoning article is carried forward, which is basically just a terminology change. So those are the articles that we had as of today. And we can come down to part 2, which is the dates in September that we feel are open or eligible or ineligible to choose town meeting. Obviously, we get the holiday weekend, school opening. There's some days in the middle of the weeks, and then we have some dates where we've already checked on some of the services that we hire are not available. So this weekend here in particular, the 12th and 13th, we would not be able to contract out special audio video. And then on the 16th of September, we have a conflict with our CART person, which is the closed captioning transcription person. And then we have some religious holidays. Timeline for any town meeting is a warrant will be posted 14 days before the meeting is called for. So should the board, for example, choose September 14th, we would post a warrant on Monday, August 31st. That's spelled out in town bylaws. And in that case, we would need the board's recommendations the prior Friday. So with the board's changing of the schedule for August, I believe you scheduled the meeting for the 24th, so that would be perfect. Then the last section of this document are the locations that we proposed. There could be more. Some might be off the table as far as you're concerned. I'm not sure. We just wanted to get them out in list format. So this first location is what we use for the annual town meeting. It's the upper high school senior parking lot and the next door gymnasium. An indoor-outdoor venue. We then can move on to a completely outdoor venue, which is the football field just up the hill, Leary Field. Went through some questions internally. There's some hills. There's a lot of construction over here on the driveway that goes by the field. So parking, we would have to be careful in counting that. We also have some questions about whether equipment can be driven into this area. I don't know what the considerations of the artificial surface are. Moving along to some town fields, we looked at Narrow Park, the upper soccer fields, which are up by Miracle Field toward the end of Quarry Road. It's wide open space. We would need to have a generator for power there, which we do have. But there's a question, we would have to count the parking spaces that are in here what that would mean on Quarry Road, just like any large event that takes place up at Narrow Park. And then, of course, there is parking down by the bathhouse at the lower end of the park. And lastly, we started looking at the field on School Street, a huge area. It's used for the annual Lions Club Town Fair. It's also used for, it's an annual Patriots Day camporee. So this was very spacious. I don't know, but I suspect we could use some of it for parking, but it does bring up some concern. I don't know what the surface is actually like under this grass, you know, in terms of accessibility. And if it's even dry, there's a lot of water over here. So I'm not absolutely certain, but we'd have to get out there and look at it. And that's what we came up for your consideration so far.
Okay, so in terms of the articles, we're looking at 6 articles, 2 on for discussion, 4 on for consent. We had talked at our last meeting whether we would consider putting on an article dealing with the use of town funds to fund the small business grant program, specifically in the amount of $176,000 to fund the 44 applicants that were eligible under the plan that the town arrived at, which the state wouldn't approve funding for. Town council had advised us we could use town monies to fund the grant program, but the proper course would be taking it to a special town meeting. Is there any interest in doing that? Comments? I take Dean?
No comments.
Oh, that was Jim.
Jim?
Yeah, I am interested in understanding how we can fund that program. And if the advice of council is the best way to do that is an article at town meeting, then I'm in favor of that.
Thank you. You know, it becomes, you know, more of a need now that we didn't qualify for the multi-town application we put in for a state grant program for small business. John, were you able to reach out to the fella who ran that program as to, there was $20 million available, $23 million in requests, and why we fell short?
I did. I called them a few times today and I couldn't connect, but I did email them and hopefully we'll connect with them tomorrow.
Besides Jim and myself, are there any people who would consider an article in the amount of $176,000 from free cash to fund the grant program? Dean?
I think I would suggest that the town manager and whoever from the board write up something and bring it back to the next meeting, and we'll take a vote on it. I'm not closing off discussion of it, but you know, I'd like to see it fully fleshed out before we get into a big discussion of it.
David?
Yeah, I agreed with Mr. Charter on that. We don't know yet what the federal government is going to do in its 5th pandemic bill. I'd like to see that. I would also like to see this, anything we have potentially vote on run by FinCom to get their input. I think we, need to be a little careful here. I mean, again, similar to the remark that Dean made earlier. The turn back from the town was excellent this year, and that'll help us survive if there is a significant downturn in fiscal 21 or 22 without major municipal cutbacks. And I don't want to go spending that all in the first 10 minutes myself. So I just want to be careful there. No, that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Okay, so we're then comfortable with the 6 articles. Jim?
I wanted to make sure that the staff and the board were aware that there's a citizens group. I've been working with them, the Acton Climate Coalition, and they're working on having a non-binding resolution at that fall town meeting to declare an Acton climate emergency. So that would be an additional item if the group is able to go through the petition process, collect the appropriate number of signatures. So just in terms of planning the time and the turnout, I want to make sure people were aware that that was coming.
Okay, so moving from articles, do you want to focus on a date? Mark, was September 14 a good date by you?
Yes, sir.
So in terms of where it all fit, that looked good.
Yes,
do
that
other
does.
people have comments on September 14? David?
No, just it looks good to me. I think we should do it a little bit on the early side again, even though this meeting is likely to be quite short.
John?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think the last meeting we had peak sunlight hours, and mid-September, I don't know what it looks like, but it might be darker earlier and buggier earlier than it was a few weeks ago.
So last time we started at 6.
Yeah.
Dean?
Yeah, I'd go for the 14th. It's early in the month. It's probably the best opportunity I've got. Might be mosquitoes. It could be cold. So let's go early. And probably 6 o'clock is a good start time if at least a portion of this is going to be held outside.
Any other comments on the September 14th date, David?
No, I was going to comment on the venue, so I'll wait.
All right, let's talk about the venue.
So I'm a little concerned about the places with grass and having people walk in. I think walk in and walk out. To me the School Street area, or even narrow down that hill or around the path, that are a little problematic. Maybe the football field, ideally to me, I guess, would be the school parking lot, even if we don't use the indoor venue. I think that's a good choice anyway, in case we at the last minute want to switch to the indoor venue, we could. But I think the parking lot there, all outdoors, we should be done in, I would guess less than half the time of the annual town meeting.
Dean?
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, they got a winner with the last meeting. This would be the potential location, like we did a few weeks ago, would be the only one that I would consider. I don't think any of those other ones have decent accessibility or decent parking, or parking close to where people are going to be getting in. I would discard any of those. I would push for the same setup that we had for our annual town meeting, and I think we should definitely plan on using the gymnasium as well, because, you know, quite likely we're going to get some rain, and, you know, at least we can get some people inside. So I think we stick with what we worked out. I know it's a double setup, but, you know, unless you decide that you're going to move the thing back into the high school auditorium, I think the one we've got on the screen right now is the only thing that would fit.
Further comments from board members, Jim?
I agree with Dean.
So is there a sense of back to the field house and the adjoining parking lot?
No, I just wanted to speak up for the notion of having it outside. One of the reasons we couldn't have it just be outside last time was because we couldn't afford a rain delay because of the you know, the end of the fiscal year coming up. It seems that now our deadline is September 30th for the Piper Lane work. So if there is a rain delay, you know, if it has to go on to the next night or the next night, even after that, we would have the slack. We even have a slot the next week after the holidays on the 21st. So I think I guess I would, in terms of saving the costs and in terms of having people feel safe there, I think having it all outside is a good move.
Dean.
Yeah, I think we have to have the option of having people inside. You know, that if we do get a rain delay and we can't hold it and everything is set up outside, and, you know, if the schools start opening again, they're going to need that parking lot. It's not like we can eat the parking lot up for a week while we're waiting for the rain to stop. And I think, you know, these are all going to be sunk costs going into this. You know, so I would strongly oppose the idea of it being an all outside venue. I think the split that we had worked out very well. And yeah, it's money, but I guess that's why we get some of that COVID money again from the federal government.
David?
Yeah, I don't, either way is fine with me. I just certainly don't object to the all outside. I suspect that this meeting could be done in half an hour. So it's not like the annual town meeting in terms of length, even our very quick annual town meeting. But either way is fine with me. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Jim, one of the things that when we for the annual town meeting, you know, we talked about whether to just have an outdoor venue, and we just said we can't control the weather. So we went to an indoor venue, and then people said, you know, that just isn't safe for me. And John was just very thoughtful and looked at it and said, you know, we could create a hybrid meeting with an indoor venue and an outdoor venue side by side. And it worked. You know, I've never seen such favorable public comment to what, you know, a select board did. You know, let's go with the winner. So, do you, I'm not sure, Mark, what would be the procedure for this? Would we need to take a vote now to set the date of September 14th and do the same hybrid venue?
Right. So it'll be to call a special town meeting on the date, at the time, at this location, and that would get us started.
I move that we have a special town meeting September 14th at 6 o'clock at the high school.
With an indoor-outdoor venue, same as
Yes.
annual town meeting on June 29th. Is there a second? Is there any discussion? David.
Do we have to say indoor, outdoor? Because if we, it's going to be in a vote and then we can't change it, right? I think, I understand that's the goal and that's fine, but I'm wondering if we, just want to leave it open in case there are circumstances where we'd want to choose. But anyway, I was fine with that at the high school.
So both the indoor, outdoor venue.
Yeah.
Jim?
I'm wondering if we're ready to actually make this formal vote about that time and place without the agreement of the schools, who I believe actually own that land. And there's a question mark in that column about school schedule. So I wonder if we can vote to make it a recommendation to staff that we proceed this way as if it's going to happen, and then make a formal vote to actually declare the special town meeting after we, clear the communications with the schools.
All right. Well, let me ask Mark this question then. With the September 14th date at the indoor-outdoor venue at the high school, be satisfactory to the school department?
Well, I do know that they do have, I was told they have the first day authorized of practice. I'm not sure what practice that is. I'm not sure if that's in the gym, but it wouldn't interfere with that schedule. I don't know what it means for the practice, if they would move to another venue. That remains to be discussed. The other consideration is the parking lot itself is used by seniors who I understand pay for those spaces. Set up for the town meeting wouldn't necessarily need to begin until midday. We maybe will even push it until the end of school. I'm not exactly sure of that. There's a lot of work that went into the annual meeting outside, beginning in the morning. There was the porta potties were coming in, the AV stuff was coming in, wires were getting run. So there's a lot of work in setting up, but yes, I do understand that schools already have some concerns.
Would it make sense to speak with Peter Light, get his okay on it, and I'm sure he'd probably have some requirements, and whether those requirements would work from our end.
Yeah.
And you can report back to us at our next meeting would be the 10th of August.
Yeah, I had preliminary conversations with Peter last week, and I can follow up with him again. And, as I mentioned, they just published their reopening plan, and they're doing a lot of thinking about those first 2 weeks of September. So we're talking in a minute about the election at the junior high, and I think having the town meeting at their high school, I think, causes a little concern for them, but I think it's something that we can talk through, and we can definitely come back with an answer at your next meeting.
Okay, so let's then, Joan, if you would just withdraw your motion. Okay, and then we'll put this on for the 10th. David.
I just want to say that we should also plan on closing the warrant on the 10th.
Okay.
Okay.
So closing the warrant on the 10th of August would mean
That's
that
closing it to citizen petitions.
Right. So that's why I'm asking, because as I mentioned, there's some citizens who are looking to get something on the warrant. So what I'm understanding is that it's likely that the 10th would be the day that the warrant, we would vote on the 10th to close the warrant on the 10th, or we would vote on the 10th to close the warrant at some future time. Or I guess I just want to get an understanding of what the limitation.
We could do either.
Okay.
To vote to do it instantaneously or at that time in the future.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Okay. So, okay, so the next item would be to hear from Ava to designate a single polling location for the 2020 election. John?
Hi, thank you. Eva is here. At the last election, we consolidated to a single location, and she has a similar request of the board tonight.
Eva?
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Again, like we did for the June 2nd election, I think it's very important to try to keep the elections in the one location, keeping voters away from the elementary school, I think is key. I feel that we don't really want people walking in and out the Conant School. They actually have to walk through the entire school to get to the gym, which I don't think is a good idea with everything going on. The election that we had on June 2nd worked excellent. We had no problems. Everything went smooth. We kept the social distancing. We had, no complaints from any of the voters in regards to the fact that we had it all in one location. We will be going forward and recommending that voters do vote early. For the September primary, we will have in-person early voting as well, that we will designate shortly as far as where we will be having it and the specific times of it. And that'll happen for the November election as well. There will be in-person voting. So the more people we can get to do the in-person early voting before the election day and vote by mail as we did for the previous election, I think it would keep our voters safe as well as our workers safe. This is the reason why I'm bringing this up and hoping that you can back the elections workers and all of us up this way.
Okay. So am I correct that the state has authorized for both the primary election in September and the November 3rd presidential election, the no excuse vote by mail ballot?
Yes, John, that's correct.
That's great. So is there any discussion on Eva's request? David?
Yeah, I think this is good to have the single polling place this year, and in fact, transitioning to more mail-in voting. I do have just a question on the mail-in ballots. How far ahead of the primary and the general election should people expect to receive their ballot if they've registered for one? In other words, when should they get worried and call the clerk's office and say, I haven't gotten my ballot yet?
Certainly. So the applications have been sent out from the Secretary of State's office. We've gotten quite a few of them back already. Every mailing that we do from our office, I also include an application for those voters. The applications can come in right now. You can send them in. My understanding from the emails I've gotten from the Secretary of State's office is that the ballots should be received by the 1st of August. The day that they do come in is the day that everybody in the office will just be putting them through and mailing them out. So they'll go out the first week in August for sure.
Okay, great. So something like 3 weeks ahead of at least the primary election.
That's correct. And it would be the same for the November election as well. They try to, they get them to us as soon as possible. Sometimes it's a little more than 3 weeks, but it has to be at least 3 weeks.
And I have one other question, which listeners might be interested in. Even if I've already filled out one of your applications for absentee ballots this year and checked all the elections in 2020, do I need to fill out the Secretary of State's one as well?
You do not, but if you're unsure and you want to double check, definitely give us a call, drop us an email. We'd be more than happy to help. and look it up. If you're still more comfortable sending it in, send it in. We don't mind having the duplicate. We'll just double check it, flip them together, and it'll be fine.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
So Eva, are the applications to apply for the vote by mail ballot, they're already available?
They are available. We have them, I believe, on our website already, and they're on the Secretary of State's website. And as I said, the Secretary of State has mailed them out to every voter, as well as us mailing them out to every piece of mail that goes out to any resident in Acton.
Oh, wow. When did that go out in your mail?
I've been sending them out for the past couple weeks.
Okay. Okay. Now, when you apply, is that just for the September one, or can you elect vote by mail ballots for September and November?
These applications that we have now are newer applications that the Secretary of State put together that actually has all elections for the rest of the year, which includes the primary, September 1st primary, and the November 3rd election as well. You can check them all or just the only ones that you want.
Great. Are there any further board member comments? Are there any comments from the public?
Nobody has their hand raised, John.
Okay, so could someone make a motion then to adopt a single polling location at the R.J. Gray Junior High School for the September 1 state primary and for the November 3 federal election?
So move.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Okay, David, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Snyder Grant?
Aye.
Ms. Gardner?
Aye.
Mr. Charter?
Aye.
Mr. Benson?
Aye.
Mr. Martin, aye. Also unanimous.
Okay, before we go to item 13, the lease agreement for 1921 Maple Street, there was one additional item not challenging any of the goals. I would like to suggest that we have a workshop session. Public may attend. We can broadcast it on Acton TV, but taking no public comment on Thursday, June 30th at noon, to discuss
John, 2 or July?
I'm sorry, July 30th, to discuss the implementation of Goal 1, short-term Goal 1, which was the commission. I've spoken with David Martin. I think I suggested last week I asked David if he'd be interested in chairing the commission. And speaking with him over the weekend, I said, could you put together a proposal for the commission, what the charge should be, membership on the commission, to give us a proposal to focus on. I think it's something we've got to move on quickly, seize the initiative on it. It was our top goal. I gave it 4 votes. Let's get out in front and be proactive and not be responding to a lot of inquiries by ad hoc groups and the like. Dean?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I have a conflict and would not be able to do anything all that week. If you want to push it off a week, if you've got a different date, that would work out okay for me. I don't know what conflicts.
Okay, let's look at calendars. I think John was away the next week, right? John M. You're not coming back.
You may not need me for it. But yeah, the first week of August is I was trying to not work, but I can.
Oh, well, you're not gonna work. You gotta be with your kids. How would, Dean, you're back for the August,
Yes, yes.
okay.
You know, if you're looking for a Thursday, why don't we go for Thursday, the 13th?
Well, you'll be back, John, then?
Yeah.
All right, could we look to Thursday, the 13th at noon? Or, John, would earlier in the morning be better for you?
We can make that work, either way.
David, how about you? Because you're the one member of the group who has a day job.
I guess I could do either of those times, either noon or 8:30 or whatever I wanted to start. So how long do you expect that this will take, John? Are you allocating a specific?
Say 2 hours. May go less, but we want to have a discussion on it.
Sure. So I could do either noon or 8:30.
What would John? Would 8:30 work for you?
Yes.
Would that be better for you, David, in terms of your work day?
That's fine. Yes.
All right. So let's look to 8:30 on 8/13. Joan, are you good with that?
Yes.
So everyone's on board with that approach. Okay, very good. Does anybody want to take a break for 5 minutes? Old guys?
Let's finish. It's 10 o'clock.
All right. So let's move ahead then. Okay, so we discussed the lease agreement for 1921 Maple Street.
So this is the building that we just acquired last year. The Gordon Richards sold it to the town, and he had a tenant in the front portion closest to Maple Street. It was an ambulance company, and this lease would allow the town to continue that lease arrangement with that tenant, only using the very that portion where the garage door is and a small portion next to it, leaving the rest of the building unoccupied for whatever the board decides to do with it. I know there's creative ideas bubbling out there, and I think it's a great opportunity for us. But while we're thinking about these great ideas, it'd also be great to have some revenue generated from that front piece and provide some backup EMS to the region, which is what's been happening there for a while. So the tenant is comfortable with the arrangement. They've even agreed to take on the cost of utilities, which apparently they weren't paying before. So it seems like a fair proposal, and just want to make sure the board's comfortable with it. It was written and drafted to you. I think I sent it on Thursday or Friday. And since that time, we've added one sentence, and the one sentence would allow the town to terminate the lease with 90 days notice. And the reason for that is if there's some big idea that comes up that we need to reuse that front portion, we don't want to be tied in for the 5 one-year extensions that this provides for. So if the board agrees to the form as provided, it would be a 1-year lease with 5 options to extend at the tenant's decision, but the town has the discretion or the ability to terminate with 90 days notice.
David, Gene, I'm sorry.
I would move that the board authorize the town manager to proceed with the lease as discussed.
Okay. Further discussion? Any comments from the public?
None.
David, if you could call the roll, please.
Mr. Snyder Grant?
Aye.
Ms. Gardner?
Aye.
Mr. Charter?
Aye.
Mr. Benson?
Aye.
And I say aye. It's unanimous.
Okay, so then we can move on to the option agreement for 348 to 364 Main Street.
Yes.
John?
So thank you. This is the option agreement that was authorized by a town meeting last year, allowing the board to dispose of this land to the Housing Authority for this affordable housing project that they have been planning. The option is something that the AHA needs to move forward with their pre-development activities. They do have, I believe they've selected a team, but I think they're kind of waiting to move forward until this option is secured. The board did see this a few times over the summer. There's been a few minor changes. The most significant change, well, I did send it all to the board over the weekend. And are there any questions about what's in there, or would you like me to go through the whole thing, or what would you like me to do?
Dean?
Yeah, I think we've all read it. We're just carrying out the wishes of the town meeting. I think the important thing is just kind of stand alone. I don't want to get involved in another further discussion about a dog park on another piece of property. So I think we just move ahead. I would move that we approve the option agreement as written.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Jim?
I'm reflecting on the notes I had from a meeting with Kelly Cronin from the AHA and Ryan Betez, who's the vice chair of the board. And I think the only piece of information I would add here is that the AHA can't move ahead with engineering questions such as the appropriate location of a leach field and how to get to that leach field until they have this option agreement. So just I'm definitely in favor of moving ahead. I just want to encourage us to think that we no matter what we do about the dog park, this is the next first step.
Yeah. David?
Yeah, I don't believe that that's true. I believe that there are a couple different alternatives, and so technical and legal. So I don't see that as an impediment.
Just
John?
Just wanted to clarify, there's a date that's referenced that the option would expire. It's meant to be at the end of 2021, but it was actually written as January 1st, 2021. So it should actually be January 1st, 2022.
Okay. That would be right, yeah.
Not that it expires, but it just the conditions change if they don't meet that. That's on section 4. So just that one typo. I wanted to make sure was included.
Okay, so we have a motion that's made and seconded. Is there any further board member comment? Okay, any comments from the public?
Matt Post would like to talk again.
Okay, Matt, please.
So now I'm unmuted, right?
I'm sorry?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I mean, I truly do not want to tie things up tonight. Can you give me some type of insight on what this document says as far as what it's for, or is it something that you guys don't want everybody to know?
No, it's a public document. It's available to you.
Okay.
It was in the packet that went out. What would you like? A summary of what's in the agreement, or would you?
No, I just want to know if you're telling, specifically, Jim specifically referenced leach fields. Okay. So my ears went up, and I just want to know what that entails. I mean, what are you giving? Are you giving an easement, or are you not giving easement? I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's no. Oh, go ahead,
John.
So the option agreement provides the housing authority to move forward with ultimately purchasing the property from the town. It lays out the conditions for which they can do their due diligence and move forward towards a P&S, a person sales agreement. So you referenced the easement. It would as written, grant the option for the AHA to purchase the entirety of Lot 3 and Parcel C. It would grant an option to acquire a permanent utility easement and temporary construction easement over Lots 1, 4, and Parcel A. It would also grant an option to acquire a permanent utility easement and temporary construction easement under the portion of Isaac Davis Way, adjacent to Lot 1, up to the midline of Isaac Davis Way as shown in the A&R plan, or in such other reasonable location as to provide utility connection to the septic utilities on Lots 1, 4, and Parcel A. And then it lays out an option period where we would ask them to spend a set amount of time in doing all their due diligence, and if they don't meet that time frame, then the option changes in its nature. And there's also a description of the purchase price, which is shown here as $1 million. And there's other conditions that are typical in a real estate transaction.
Okay, so my question to you is, how does the town give them the right to have an easement over or under Isaac Davis Way?
So it's an option to acquire. It's not the it's not
the actual easement.
Not acquiring it. Yeah, it's an option to acquire.
Right. I just want to know exactly where we stand. That's all.
Further questions, Matt?
I'm good now, but we will have that meeting, correct?
Yeah. If you would talk to your neighbors, Joan and I will circle back to you. We're happy to. Joan and I are happy to sit down with you, and
if you give me two times next week, we will make it happen.
I'm sorry?
Give me 2 times next week, and we will make it happen.
Okay. So you want me to check back with you later in the week?
Yes, please.
Will do. Thank you. Okay. So we have a motion on the table. It's been seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Tom Gillespie has his hand up.
Sure, Tom.
All right, can you hear me all?
Yes.
Yes.
So in the related materials for tonight's meeting, item 70 says Acton Housing Authority Town Agreement Letter, and yet it's a PDF of a letter from the Housing Authority congratulating the Board of Selectmen on various things. So at some point, if the actual agreement letter could be made available, that would be great.
The actual the option agreement, once it's signed, would be a public document.
Okay, so we didn't expect that the option letter would be in the packet for tonight?
Well, there's a letter dated June 30th. What is your concern?
I'm looking now. It's not in the packet.
It wasn't in the packet?
There's several other real estate agreements in the packet. That one looks like, unless it was added in the extra information. We can add it right now, or we can add it later.
I'm fine with if you add it later. I have no concerns.
Okay. Anything further, Tom?
No, thank you.
Okay, so then if there's no further comments, David, would you call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Snyder Grant.
Aye.
Ms. Gardner.
Aye.
Mr. Charter.
Aye.
Mr. Benson.
Aye.
And Mr. Martin. Aye. Unanimous.
Okay, before we get to the last item, with respect to our workshop on August 13th, David will send out his proposal to us with the packet for that meeting, so we would be versed and on it and be prepared to discuss it at the meeting. So you'll be seeing it ahead of time. Okay, so the last item would be approve the amendment to the town manager's contract. John, I'm not going to ask you to do this. So let me just explain to members of the public that are still here. When we vote the contract is a public document. It's posted on the website. The main points of the contract are that when John first took the job, he entered into a 3-year contract from July 1 of 18 through June 30 of 22. And as part of the annual review process, if things are going well with the manager, as a gesture back and forth, we extend the contract each year by an additional year. So this year would extend John's contract through June 30, 2023. John's salary will be raised from $193,600 to $205,312. Now, just a comment to the public, we are not insensitive to the employment concerns and anxieties of Acton residents, and we certainly recognize that certain businesses that residents work at, have slowed down, causing pay cuts in some instances, notices of non-bonuses, and general uncertainty. The delivery of Acton Town services has in fact not slowed down, and those services have increased. And John has been going since the early part of March, 24/7. It doesn't stop. He's enacted, as you heard earlier, a host of cost-cutting measures that have saved for FY20 about $1,300,000, which go back towards our free cash. So we will discuss now, but I certainly wholeheartedly support John's latest contract. So any discussion? Comments or Dean?
Yeah, I'll move that we sign the contract.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion from the board or members of the public? David, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
and I also say aye. Unanimous.
Well done, John, and thank you so very much.
Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it.
Okay, who's going to make the motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second, Mr. Charter. I get no discussion. David? Call the roll.
Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
and me, aye. We're adjourned.
Okay, August 10th. Have a good break, men and women.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.